Hey guys, so welcome to the fifth episode, season 4 of the Teen Whisperer Show. And in this season, we are going to discuss journeys of various podcasters all around the world and how they are doing podcasts, their future goals, and many more. In today's episode, we have a guest who has single-handedly has done a great job in producing his "If Only They Knew" podcast. Trust me, mate, it took me a long time to pronounce his name. It's really hard. The sentence construction, that the word construction he made is really hard. The main aim of this podcast is, sharing the stories, advice, and opinions of young entrepreneurs and business minds from across the UK. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ted Lawlor to the show. Mr. Lawlor, happy to have you on the show, man. So, please tell a little bit about yourself and your podcasting career so far.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I love what you're doing with your podcast. And yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a wordy podcast, but if you can see that, if only they knew, also known as IOTK, if you can see that in the background there. Yeah. But yeah, it's a podcast that I designed. Really only started it at the start of this year. But it's If Only They Knew is also the media group that I created 3 years ago, back in September 2017. I started a media group just whilst I was at uni. I wanted to sort of test my marketing skills. So I thought, what better way to test it than starting up a media group, which I did. And then, yeah, about 3 years later, I decided to start up the podcast. And yeah, that was the start of this year. And it's moved very quickly. And I interview young entrepreneurs that you probably haven't heard of all around the UK. And then like people from the Apprentice as well. So I try and keep that nice range of people you know and want to hear more about, and people you don't know, and that can sort of share new stories you wouldn't have heard before. So that's sort of the dynamic there. But yeah, it's going well.
Oh, that's great. And just can you give brief about the Apprentice, like for those people who doesn't know what's that about?
Yeah, so the Apprentice is it was huge at one point in the UK. It's a show on BBC. Which basically has, I think, about just under 20 people that go onto a show. It's a big series. They battle it out, doing different business-based tasks every week, with the hopes of getting through each stage without getting sacked, without getting fired, and yeah, getting to the final stage and getting a £250,000 investment. And yeah, I've sort of, since 2017, I've pretty much had the majority of the people from each series either on the podcast or on my page in some form.
So it's kind of like Shark Tank, I guess.
Yeah, it's similar to that. It's just, rather than standing up and pitching to a board of investors, you've only got one potential investor, and you're just doing different tasks. So it's sort of like a reality TV show spin-off type thing.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So just one thing is that, what is actually the name? Like, If Only They Knew means, I mean, like, what's the reason for that name for the podcast?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that, because I guess where I created it, I sort of I took that meaning on board from the get-go, and I didn't really think about how others would interpret it. But yeah, essentially I was sitting there, like I said, I was a struggling uni student with no sort of idea of where I wanted to go. Or what I wanted to do, but I just knew that deep down inside I had some sort of skill, some sort of talent. I just didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to harness it. So I thought, if only I could get that talent out there and get it heard. And that's sort of where it come from. I was like, I need to do something. Like, in my head, I kept saying, if only he knew, if only she knew. Like, I was literally saying that when I was talking to lecturers and stuff like that. Those were the words going through my head. So yeah, I thought, why not just call it If Only They Knew, and yeah, just let everyone sort of show the world their potential that probably wouldn't have been known otherwise.
Wow. That's great. I mean, like, it's kind of a voice in your head, and you just kind of written it down and made a podcast out of it. Wow, that's an awesome one.
Yeah, exactly that, yeah.
Wow. So you actually, sold, like, I saw in your recent post that your caps actually sold, within minutes, in that cap. So what's the story behind that?
Yeah, so I've always sort of been looking for ways to monetize my page without selling out. Like, I didn't want to sort of sell things that I didn't believe in, like courses that didn't really add value, and sort of yeah, I just wanted to be like really straight up and honest with my audience.
Hmm.
So as you can see here, I've got the hoodie, which we
Yeah.
sold out in as well. That took a bit longer,
Hmm.
but these are a couple of years old now. I just wanted a way to sort of generate some income and sort of keep the page flowing, essentially, just keep it up and running. So I've done the hoodies first. They sold out within a few weeks. So I brought out the caps, as you can see there.
Yeah.
And yeah, people loved it. And before I only put out on Snapchat, not
Hmm.
Instagram, none of my main platforms. I put it out on Snapchat, and yeah, within literally about 20 minutes or so, they all sold out. So I need to order some more.
Oh, great. And is there any reason like why they bought it from you? Because, it's kind of really amazing when you create a community and you're trying to monetize your podcast rather than having a sponsorship, but, creating community on the side. So what actually people expected, like, their response and what it was like for you when when they sold, when bought everything?
Well, first I was like over the moon. I was so happy, but I think it's something I thought about. It's a good question. It's something I thought about myself. Like, why would people want to buy from me? I'm
Mm.
sort of, I'm a nobody, I haven't really done much personally myself, like in terms of going out and
Yeah.
changing the world and sort of helping others to too much of an extent. I
Mhm.
have done it sort of, but not like on a massive level. And I think perhaps looking into it, perhaps it is sort of the fact that I've helped some people in some way, even if it's a small thing like shouting them out. I think people respect the fact that I give people a platform,
Mhm.
albeit quite a small platform in comparison to the other platforms that are out there. But I think people just form a level of respect
Mhm.
for people that are supporting each other with sort of no expectations. It's not like I'm shouting people out and
Yeah.
saying, okay, you need to shout me out now. Like just the other day, I went through and shouted out loads of people just off my own back, just to sort of show some love. Um, and yeah, so I think that's what it is really. I think if you're trying to sell anything, you need to have a high level of respect, whether it's with your
Mhm.
personal brand or whether it's your actual business brand. I feel like you need to have a level of trust and a level of respect and a level of sort of keep piling on top of each other until it gets to the point where you can just sell them anything.
Yeah, I can understand that. And this is something that I actually really got kind of like how to say, inspired or relief, may I say, because when I saw in your page that I actually you said I actually did everything single-handedly by myself, and I'm so proud of that. And that's
Mm.
the same for me. Actually, I know I don't give out to anything like editing or anything like that. I don't give it out to anyone. So if someone is so pressured by that, so like, do I have to do everything? I mean, like, probably when they're starting out, they won't be having the money to give out or find someone on Fiverr to edit or anything like that. So what
Mhm.
advice would you actually give to someone who's starting out and they're going to do everything on their own? What advice would you give to them?
I'd say well done, because I think people that do it by themselves always end up in a better position. Because if you're doing it by yourself, you're actually learning. By
Mhm.
outsourcing at an early stage, one, you need to think, do you actually need to outsource and get other people to do certain bits? Because if you look at your schedule during a day, if you broke it down by hour, I guarantee you have like around 3-4 hours free at some point
Mhm.
during the day, that instead of sitting there watching Netflix and sort of chilling out, you could edit the podcast, or you could do something else for the podcast. You can
Mhm.
create the audiograms, or you can book a guest on. There's always time in the day. So I think, and it's something I thought about, like, and you just think, oh, I can't be bothered to edit the podcast. I'll try and get someone else to do it. And it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm being lazy. So yeah, my one piece of advice for those people is, don't be lazy. It's a hard process, but if you really want to be a podcaster, you have to accept the process as it is,
Mhm.
and you have to do each step as they come. And without those steps, you won't learn, you won't develop. And the person you're outsourcing it to will learn, and they'll develop, and they'll probably start their own podcast off the back of the money you've thrown at them. And trust me, they'll probably charge stupid amounts as well. So keep all the money to yourself in the early stages. Use all the money you're getting from wherever. Fund the podcast. If your heart's really in it, fund the podcast. Stick to it yourself. Don't let anyone edit it. Don't let anyone do this, that. Just stick to it, and yeah, keep it as your own project until it gets to a point where you've got so many guests booked in and so many sponsors harassing you. Then you can think about outsourcing, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
until that stage, stick at it yourself, you know, and just don't be lazy. I know it sounds harsh, but it's something I've told myself, you know, you've got time. So yeah, just stick to it yourself.
Wow, that's great. And now you're actually, kind of looking for someone, because I think you're actually being harassed by sponsors. I think that's one of the reasons why you're looking for someone, I think. So if you aren't looking, like, what are the qualities that you actually expect? Just if some listener out there who actually might be interested, what do you want to say to them?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's sort of gotten to the stage now where I don't need somebody to edit the podcast or take over like the bits that I can do. I just need essentially another me to sort of just bounce ideas off, you know, and sort of be more of a team. Because don't get me wrong, it's hard doing it independently because you can only do so much. And if you're trying to bounce ideas off yourself, you know, you're not really going to get anywhere because you're just going to come up with the same idea over and over again in different variations. So yeah, I was sort of looking for someone else that will sort of really spearhead the project and get it moving a bit faster, you know. But I'll still take care of all the other stuff that I can do because I've definitely got the time. But yeah, what was the question again? I was on a ramble.
Like, what, like you said, you already answered the question. Actually, what are things that actually, you require, like, for the person that you're actually searching for? So basically, I think other than editing, you require, like, guest booking or something like that, or idea generation. I think that's how they're actually looking, I think.
Yeah, like someone with a good connections, essentially. Like I was sort of looking for someone with good connections and perhaps like a good connection with a studio that I can go and use and stuff like that, you know, that you may not have got if you was doing it alone. Sometimes you sort of need someone who already has a foot in the door that can say, oh, by the way, I've got a studio that you can use for 10% off because I know the owner, or I am the owner, or whatever it is. Like it's stuff like that. That's when I say you can start using other people to sort of get your foot in the door if they're already holding the door open for you, you know. But when it's doors that are already you can open yourself, I think just go for it.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a really long time when the studio is going to be open, because I mean, like, this COVID and everything, and people are actually staying at home doing everything on Zoom right now. And and I actually started this Zoom call like just maybe a month or two ago, because it, everyone started watching videos, because podcasts listeners got reduced because they weren't traveling anymore and they moved on to YouTube and everything and stuff. So yeah, I can totally get that. And I want to talk this about the law of attraction that you actually mentioned in one of your videos. You are talking about when you are showing the McGregor the doll, it's not the doll, sorry, the action figure, I guess. Yeah. I forgot the name.
This one.
Yeah. So what do you think about that? Do you have anything happened to you like that in your journey, anything?
Well, a lot of weird things have happened to me during my time on Earth, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, the law of attraction is something I've sort of I've been falling into without even realizing for the past few years, even. But only really started taking it seriously really around this year. I spoke to on my podcast someone called Robert Icey, who in the UK he's the #1 unconscious mind therapist, and essentially what that means is he knows how to tap into your unconscious brain and find out the exact ways to sort of switch it on and get it working in your favor. And yeah, really interesting. He come onto my podcast and shared some amazing things, and that made me think, oh, okay, so the law of attraction to me isn't just nonsense or magic or whatever you want to call it. Like, he explained the science behind it all. I was like, okay, now that I know it's backed by science, I can sort of put my faith into it a bit more and sort of take on some things, you know. But yeah, like loads of things have happened, like so much I can't even remember, but just so much happening. Like when I'm looking to get, it's a weird one. I'm looking to get a new car, but I'm not in a rush to get a new car. And the car I want is an Audi TT. And
nice.
That means, that whenever I go out onto the road, the only car that I see out the corner of my eye is the Audi TT. And Robert explained that that's the law of attraction, the sort of kicking in. And he mentioned, I won't go into it too much, but he mentioned that it's the RAS. And the RAS is the reticular activating system. And it's basically something in your brain that when you think of something, it switches a switch in your brain that says, okay, I'm now going to look out for those things. So I thought of the Audi TT, and without even really seeing it, just out the corner of my eye, my brain says, oh, look, that's the Audi TT over there. And then instantly I'm like, oh crap, it is. And I'm like distracted whilst driving and stuff like that. So yeah, that's sort of the law of attraction coming into place. And I guess what that means, I've been thinking about, well, I'm seeing the car, but how do I actually get the car?
Mm-hmm.
And I think without even realizing, it's only looking back that I'm like, okay, whenever I drive past a car store, I'll notice straight away if it's an Audi store without even looking. Like it just capture my eye, and I'm like, oh, the four rings, that's the Audi store. And I look at the Audi TT, like all the thousands of cars that are there, I'll see the Audi TT, even if it's in the background. And then by looking at that, I then notice the price on that. And then I noticed that there's another sign in the window that says come in now and stuff like that. And I think naturally you just get pulled in ever so slowly with little things over time. And I think that's the attraction part. The little things that you barely notice unless you're paying attention, that slowly pull you in. And eventually one day, instead of turning right, I'm going to turn left into that Audi car front. And I'm going to go up to the guy and say, I'm after a car. I'm going to be staring at the Audi TT and I'm going to end up buying it without sort of realizing. So I think that's the law of attraction working currently in my life. But yeah, I think it's definitely real. You know, it's not magic.
Wow. Yeah, I guess you're right, because, I really wish that I have actually the law of attraction when it comes to cars, but, that there's this, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm going to add what I'm going to say in the podcast or not, but I will say it anyway. Is that I had this college romance once. Okay, it was like for a year or a half. It's kind of one side. It's not like unrequited love, people say. So it's like I would always be thinking about that person, and whenever I look at someone or turn like, is that person's face is everywhere. So I really wish that law of attraction I have something like an RD rather than on a person. So yeah, I guess. And this kind of out of the podcast question, I always wanted to to someone that has to like love a cars, because how could you actually love a car? Because when it comes to bikes, I really love bikes. I really love those, because when you're riding, you actually are in the presence. Okay, it's like it's you. It's only you. It's you and the bike. It's only you. And if it's car, means it's kind of like a really long, and it kinds of lots of space, and I don't know whether you are present for the moment or not. So is there any reason specific like why you love those kinds of cars? Anything? Just curious.
Honestly, I hate cars, but for some reason that car, and that's the weirder bit. I think it'd make more sense if I loved cars and I loved that particular type of car. But I hate cars. I have no interest in cars at all. I've had the same car for like 3-4 years, and it like the amount of times I've broken it and just like left it and hope that it'll sort of fix itself. Yeah, I hate cars, but that Audi TT, there's something about it. And I think this is so deep, yeah. But if we was to go into it, I think it's the fact that it's a selfish car. It's small, it's compact, it's a 2-seater, no boot space whatsoever, the tiniest boot. And I think subconsciously that's my selfish side coming out. And I know that's really deep, but I think that's why I'm attracted to the car. But yeah, there's definitely something about that small compactness that really like drives me towards it, But yeah, and the fact that it's probably so fast. But yeah, that's really it for me. Basic.
Wow. Amazing. Glad I clarified that doubt.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, interestingly, I checked out your website by, putting the link on Uber Suggest, and I found some really amazing insights. I mean, your website got more than 1,000 visitors, it came in, especially during May and June. I mean, like, what did you do during those time? Anything specific? Because 1,000 visitors exactly that month. Because other than that, it was like not that much. But what did it actually do during these 2 months?
The simple answer, I just put more effort in and put more content out there, and that's sort of as simple as I can break it down, really. But the more detailed answer is I was just looking at where I sort of did like an audit, a mini audit for the year. Looked at, okay, for the past few months, what's spiked my numbers? Whenever I put out a certain piece of content, what spiked my numbers? I'll say, okay, it's this, that, and that. So what I do more is this, that, and that, in order to sort of drive the numbers. And yeah, it worked really. It was just a simple case of looking at what worked and doing it again, and having it work again in my favor. So yeah, that's pretty much it really. Simple as that.
Wow, wow, wow. I mean, like, it's not, it's maybe in a stocky way, which I thought, like, why he actually, he put his website in the Uber suggest, but it's
No,
kind
it's
of,
good. It's good.
yeah, I kind of, want to know, like, how they're doing in the website, because it's really amazing. Like, the website is actually clean and neat. So, is there anything like the tips that you want to give when it comes to, podcasting websites, like how it should be and what are things that you should take care of? Any tips on that?
Yeah. So that website isn't like solely for the podcast. It has the podcast on there, but it's more for my media group as a whole, and like the podcast is sort of a sub part of that media group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it has a podcast page on there, and I think it's so good for SEO. I don't know too much about it, but for me, SEO helps so much, and it's like the
Yeah.
one thing that you can do so easily. If you just go onto your website, or whoever's listening, go onto their website and think, okay, how would Google actually pick this page up
Mm-hmm.
if I haven't got a header, if I haven't got my keywords in, I haven't got the name of my podcast written like so many times, like per section of the page. And I think thinking of those things, they're so easy to clean up, because I guarantee the people listening will be like, oh wow, I didn't do this, didn't do that. And literally all I did, I'm not an expert, but all I did was just Google like SEO tips for the website. And yeah, literally as simple as that. Follow the guides, and yeah, before you know it, you would have implemented 10 things that would help in some way, But another thing I did, in talking of SEO, with my podcast title, it was originally If Only They Knew, just
Mm-hmm.
If Only They Knew. um, and I thought, again, SEO wise, what are people going to be typing into podcast apps? And I thought the one thing they're probably going to be typing in, that I can be certain they're going to be typing in, is young entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
Yeah.
I changed the title of my podcast to If Only They Knew, interviews with young entrepreneurs. So when someone types in young entrepreneurs, I'm going to have a chance of coming up
Yeah.
in the search engine, because before that I would have had no chance of coming up. No one's going to type in If Only They
Mm-hmm.
Knew, like if they've never heard of me before. So I think, yeah, just think about, almost like reverse engineer it, and think about, okay, I if I was my ideal audience member, how would I actually find my page? Like, and
Mm-hmm.
don't let ego sort of drive you, like, and be like, oh well, they must have heard of it if only they knew. Like, I've been around for 3
Yeah.
years, I'm on all the major platforms, etc., etc. It's like, no, delete that ego and work from the very start and say, okay, if they haven't heard of If Only They Knew, how on earth are they going to find me? And
Mm-hmm.
then work from there. But it's a bit of a tangent, but yeah, I think that's sort of how I built my website initially, and it's sort of how I'm beginning to develop it even more so.
Wow, wow, wow! That's nice. And yeah, actually, I actually had Scott Stockdale on my show. I think you actually had him as well. And yeah, I was actually asking him the same question, because he's actually in his day job itself is SEO, like how he does and all the stuff. So yeah, I think that's great. And just want to ask you just one thing, is that where do you actually find those entrepreneurs? Because you said that those are the people that people don't know, most probably, like the entrepreneurs who people doesn't know. But how do you find those people?
I think that's been like my secret sauce. You know how like KFC has the like the herbs and spices. I think
Yeah.
that's like my herbs and spices there. Um, but yeah, one part of it is the fact that I've built a platform over 3 years,
Hmm.
and when back then there wasn't a platform similar. Now there seems to be loads, and I don't know whether that's as a result of me starting the page, or just
Hmm.
a coincidence that they've now started the page. But back then there was hardly any pages similar to what my main group is,
Hmm.
which is quite lucky, I guess, because it meant that so many hundreds and hundreds of young entrepreneurs across the UK sort of come flood into the page, and we could build a natural rapport, build a connection, and
Hmm.
build that network, that community, which most people won't have access to. And I think that's sort of the herbs and spices behind my main page, because people wouldn't have heard of these young entrepreneurs before I
Yeah.
put them onto the platform. So obviously some would have, but for the most part they're brand new. They haven't got anything. If you type their names into Google, they haven't got anything. And then
Hmm.
now they've got my website, and then from that they'll slowly start to get more and more recognition, just naturally, because they're getting the name out there. But yeah, really, it's just a case of being in the in the community. Like if I want to find people of the community, I need to be in the community itself.
Yeah.
I can't be an outsider looking in, trying to pluck certain people, because all I'm
Mhm.
going to pluck. Imagine like you're another one of my weird metaphors, but imagine you're standing over like a little pond, lake thing, and you're trying to catch the fish. You're only going to see the fish that come to the top.
Yeah.
And without diving in, you're not going to see any of the fish that are sort of lurking behind the bottom that aren't big enough to come to the top and stuff
Mhm.
like that. But that's sort of what I was doing. I thought, you know what? I'm only seeing the big names constantly, the big fishes. I'm going to dive in and see what's there. And yeah, you start lifting up a few rocks under the water and you're like, okay, he's good, she's good. And you can start pulling them out, and before you know it, they're massive fish.
Oh, yeah, I can understand because my podcast is actually kind of like the podcast is itself like about podcast, like how they're doing it. So I mostly go to Facebook and just ask them like, you want to talk about podcasting, like how you're doing and everything and stuff. And sometimes it's actually really hard when it comes to finding guests. I can totally understand. And you have a secret sauce on getting more fish. So I think that's a good sign. And just one point added to the previous thing about SEO is that you're actually saying when someone types your name, the website may have chance of coming up. So what I actually kind of did is kind of really funny because I had my name as Jeffrey Bhubati. Okay, it's kind of my name, and it's really not many people have that two names because one is a Christian name and one is a Hinduism name. So kind of two religious name having in single
Yeah.
word. So when I type it out and when I go to my images, I see some weird pictures of myself because when I was actually starting my first Instagram account, I actually like posted like tons of pictures and weird stuff, like posting different ways and a lot of stuff. So my friends actually took that pictures and they spammed me, and they spammed their WhatsApp status and they ruined my reputation. So yeah, I think it's it's kind of really it's really like kind of how to say, because when you type in a name, it's you'll never know what's coming up. So I think I can really understand like what are things that you want to say. And okay, so this is actually kind of I always ask my guests like out of the question my podcast is that it's actually morning there, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah. It's 10 o'clock, literally bang on 10 o'clock in the morning.
Awesome. So okay. So who was the last person that you actually made smile yesterday?
You know what? Weirdly enough, I knew this question was coming and I thought about it. And last night, I got back from boxing. I just started up boxing again about 7 o'clock. So it would have been the last person was probably either my dad that I was at boxing with or the boxing coach. But either of those, like, I'm happy with. They're both like nice people and stuff. So
Mhm.
yeah, it would have been in a fun environment where I was sort of living my best life. And yeah, it was either one of those two that I made smile.
Wow. And how do you actually knew this question was coming, by the way?
I listened to the
Oh my
podcast.
god, it's
I was
really nice
prepared.
when you say it. It's really nice when you
Yeah.
say it, but this actually ruined my moment of you
Yeah.
like making you think, oh my god, I can't believe this.
I
Wow,
know,
wow.
I know. I was too prepared for that one, I'm afraid.
Wow, that's an awesome one. And you actually do boxing, by the way, is that right?
Yeah, I used to do it like on and off. Um, but I just started back up yesterday. And
Mm.
yeah, I think I'm going to stick to it this time.
Wow, that's great. Just one experience I want to share is that when it comes to boxing and everything, is that in my dreams, the problem mostly comes is that I keep always fighting in my dreams. I keep always fighting with someone or anything,
Mm.
like not like in a professional way, like mental fight or physical fight, whatever it is. I keep always fighting. And today morning I had the dream, and someone was hitting me. The only problem was that I couldn't hit back. Like I can just take the hit, I couldn't hit back. So what I always thought is that maybe it's because I'm not trained, like to fight, or maybe I'm not
Mm.
having the perfect shape or anything like that. That's actually causing me to have those kinds of dreams in my mind. So do you
Mm.
suggest that if I could learn boxing, or if I could to have in shape, those dreams would actually go away? Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, 100%. It's probably without going too deep again. I love going deep, but without going too deep, it's probably your subconscious feeling like insecure
Yeah.
or feeling unhappy with a certain situation.
Mhm.
Like I know, like looking back on the dreams I've had, and I've tried to sort of reverse engineer and work out why I was having them. It may not be actually to do with fighting. It may be to do with, like you said, like just a conflict of thoughts, a conflict of the brain. But yeah, I think knowing that you can, like, knock someone out, or you can do this, you can do that, knowing you can
Yeah.
defend yourself, I think you'll you'll get rid of all that conflict and all that insecurity. And that's sort of one thing that I've battled with as well, you know. But yeah, no, definitely, I'd definitely advise it. Going to a gym and just start boxing. It's good fun.
Wow, I definitely needed to hear that. So thank you so much on that. Awesome. So just we'll actually move on to the rapid fire round. I don't know whether you have heard this or not. I guess you have not.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oh my god, this is not fair, by the way. Awesome. So the first question is, what do you actually like about podcast?
I like the fact that it allows me to connect with people that I would never have even been on their radar before, you know. But now I'm almost good friends with some high profile people. So yeah, that's the major thing. As I never normally had friends at school and stuff, really. So yeah, it's a good way to make friends.
Wow, I can feel you. I can feel on the sentence. Don't worry, you're not alone. Awesome. So what do you don't like about the podcast?
Just the editing and the admin and everything that comes with it. You know, like you have to edit and stuff like that. It's horrible. I hate it.
Awesome. So what is actually the one of the biggest problem that you're actually facing, doing podcasting? The one biggest problem?
The biggest problem now is just getting to the next step, getting the huge guests. I've had big guests on, but I want huge guests and just to grow and get the numbers up, really. That's the main struggle.
Awesome. So if you actually never done podcast when you're starting out, if you have decided not to do a podcast, what else you might have done during that time?
For me, it's quite different to probably other people listening because I already had the media group. So I think for me, I would have kept on with the media group and would have done some form of interviews anyway, because I was doing written interviews before with people from the Apprentice and stuff like that. I feel like I still would have gone into interviewing, but it probably wouldn't have been a podcast. It would have been a video, just like a 5-minute video instead.
That's nice. Okay. So in case if you are ever hit by a car, okay, and your airbag's right in your face and you're going to die, don't take this negative sense. You're not just saying, who would be the last person that actually comes to your mind?
The first or the last?
The last. I mean, like there will be a list of people, but the last, like, oh my God, this is the person that I don't want to miss. The first person obviously would be my mother, most probably, I think. So who is the last person?
Oh, that's such a good question. Like the person that I didn't want to come up, but he just pops up at the last minute. Damn, that has got me. I know it's supposed to be quick fire. God, there's actually no one that I don't like. That's so weird. Or like no one that I'm like scared of or have any sort of.
It's like a priority, let's see. Like, you'll have a different sort of priorities with people. So the last person, I mean, like, I know it's really rude to say that, but just for argument's sake.
I feel like literally if I could see everyone that I've ever had some deal with, whether it's good or bad, like obviously the first person would be like family and then friends and then etc. The last person that I'd hate to see is probably like a teacher or something, just to like, because what they told me at school was just rubbish. So to have them there at any stage of my process of dying would just ruin it for me. Like family and friends have taught me a lot. The teachers have barely taught me anything. To have someone like that there, I'd be praying to die.
Yeah, I can understand, because in schools and mostly in colleges as well, people actually say things that you're going to get a job, you're going to do these things and all that stuff, exaggeration. But when you go out, you'll be like, damn, what's this world? That's the first question obviously would come to your mind. So yeah, I can understand. And no offense, and definitely that's really a true one. So no problem with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. So in case if you want to get out of this interview that we are doing right now, okay, what reason would you say?
I'm quite good at excuses, I feel like I could literally say anything to you and I feel like I could somehow make you believe it. I'd probably... So you're saying excuses to get out of the interview, yeah?
Yeah.
I've got 2 dogs, so I could literally just say, oh, my dogs are making so much noise, let me just sort them out. And then before you know it, all you see is this. And then I never come back. I'll just leave the computer on and leave you waiting. Or, I'd literally just say, oh, there's issues with my Wi-Fi, and then start stuttering like this. And then again, you just get the hands. You just get the hand like that. So that would be
Yeah.
me. That would be me, really. I think that any excuse I can come up with, I feel
Mhm.
like it would be believable, you know?
Wow. You won't believe it, but actually, when I asked this question, a guest actually acted like, she actually, got, stuck, with the static, the Wi-Fi is not, she actually got stuck. Like literally she was acting like she got stuck. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
hello, you there? Hello. I was like saying this for 2-3 minutes and she was like, just like that. She was, I mean, like, I can't believe that actually happened. And yeah.
That's so bad. I've had similar experiences before where someone not doing that, but someone's
Mhm.
just like, oh, can I 5 more minutes? I'll be with you in 5 more minutes, 5 more minutes. Then 5 more minutes come, and then they say, oh, 10 more minutes. I'm just on the call and on the call. And then when they get on the call, they say, oh, I've only got 10 minutes left. It's like, well, no, I don't want to spend ten
Yeah.
minutes with you. Okay, no, see you later.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, like we are doing it like in a 45 minutes hour long podcast means obviously it actually requires some
Mm.
kind of commitment and everything to do. I cannot really get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. Yeah.
So this question is actually kind of personal to you. I actually basically asked 6 questions, but this is actually kind of personal to you. So I want to ask is that if you ever got Conor McGregor to your show just for a few minutes, and you have the time to ask just one question to him, what question
Mm.
would you ask?
This is so weird that you mentioned that because I've been thinking about it,
Mhm.
and again with the law of attraction, I feel like you have to put it out there and believe it yourself before it comes true and stuff like that. Yeah. So I've been thinking about putting that out there that I will have Conor McGregor on the podcast in some form, or I will speak to him. That sounds nuts to everyone, yeah. But
Yeah.
in my head, I've got a route. I've got certain people that are in some way connected to him,
Mhm.
whether it's 10 degrees out, then 9 degrees, 8 degrees, 7. Like they know people that know people that know people, and I can go down that route and get to him. I know I can do it. But I don't know whether to go down that route, if that makes sense. But yeah, if I had him on, sorry, again, what was the question? If I had him
Like
on, what would I
the
say?
one question that you would ask him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it would have to be something about like the mindset, I think maybe. It'd definitely be something about mindset and similar questions to what I asked my guests already, because the reason I ask, because I actually want to know the answer. I don't ask just to sort of waste a minute and then move on
Mhm.
to another question. Like, I actually want to know. So I feel like it'd be centered around mindset. Maybe like tap into what he really felt as a kid, because a lot of people ask like, oh, did you really believe you was going to be a UFC fighter when you
Yeah.
was a plumber? And he'd say, yes, I did. But maybe like go back a bit further and look at what his life was like as a kid, so then I can compare it to myself as a kid and other people can compare it to themselves as well. And I think that would be very valuable to find out.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think you actually heard of this entrepreneur called Gary Vaynerchuk. I think you might have heard about him. So he actually said
Mm.
that if someone in your position, exactly like if you are having a rough childhood or anything like that, if someone in those position can actually achieve something else in life, then you can too. So like literally what I
Exactly
try to
that.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, and I can
Yeah,
understand
exactly.
it.
Yeah, I think that's something I think of as well, and I try and get that
Mhm.
message out like whenever the opportunity comes up. Like, don't worry about another person's situation. If they did make it or they didn't make it, it means nothing to you. Like
Yeah.
it literally means nothing. It means that one person made one more right
Mhm.
decision, and another person made one more bad decision, and that stopped them, and that helped them to grow. And what's stopping you? You might go up a different route and end up here, or you might end up down. Like, you just don't know. So just keep going, because
Mhm.
whatever people are doing around you doesn't really make a difference. You're on your own path. You're not on anyone else's path. So don't worry. Don't watch others.
Exactly, mate. Wow. So, just one final question before closing is that what do you actually give as the best tip to a fellow podcaster in order to grow? Best tip in the whole world, according to you.
Simply just go all in. Like we mentioned earlier, if you're going to start a podcast, you're obviously starting it for a reason. So find out what that reason is. If it's to make money, great. You have to stick at it. It's a long game before you can start making money. So you need to stay in it, stay involved with it, try and take over the process as much as you can. Or even if your goal is just to speak to as many people as possible,
Hmm.
the end goal is sort of irrelevant. You have to go through similar processes anyway. So if you're going to do it, be prepared, because it's a long game. So yeah, just go all in, put your heart and soul into it, spend as many hours as you can on it. And if you do that, what can go wrong? Unless you're a terrible podcaster, which many people aren't. I haven't met any bad podcasters
Yeah.
yet. I've met one or two, I think, if I'm being honest. But apart from that, yeah, nothing can go wrong. So just go all in, and yeah, we're all starting off together. So we'll all
Mhm.
see each other in a few years' time, and yeah, see where everyone's at.
Wow, that's awesome. And just one point I wanted to say when it comes to, like, like you said, making money when it comes to podcasting. And yeah, I think you did a great job, like, putting out caps and ordering everything and out. So what I basically thought as a business model is that when you're doing podcasting, editing, of course, you do know how to edit videos or audios, or like giving advice on guest interviews. So I always thought that if you could share that expertise, and you can monetize that, rather than having sponsorship. Because sponsorship is that, have you ever had sponsors in your podcast?
No, not yet. I was
Mhm.
on the verge of having one, but it just didn't make sense for the money they were offering, and
Mhm.
like their platform was a lot different to mine, so it just
Yeah.
didn't fit,
Yeah, exactly my point as well. Because they may be having like a product which is not actually related to our demographics. So if they are trying to, I mean, like, for the money, if we are doing it, obviously they won't get any leads or sales, and we would be the one that's actually to blame. So yeah,
Exactly,
I can,
yeah.
I can,
And
I
I
can.
think
Mhm.
just be like realistic with yourself, and again, don't sell yourself too short. Don't sell your soul to the devil, as they say,
Mhm.
because there's just sort of no point. Like I said, it's a long game, so don't sell out for a quick bit of money in the early stages. Just hold on, and the bigger, more relevant, more valuable offers will come eventually.
Awesome, awesome, man. So now the tables have been turned. Actually, now you are the host. I'm actually the guy who's actually doing, getting interviewed right now. What question would you ask me? Anything like that? Anything of such?
Again, I was prepared for this slightly as well. So I was sort of hoping, like, why did you get into it? Like, what's your end goal? Do you want to just speak to more people? Do you have a message that you want to put out, like something that's happened to you, an experience that you want to share? Do you want to
Mhm.
make money from it? If you don't mind me asking, like,
Yeah.
what's your reasonings for podcasting?
Awesome. So yeah, so two reasons. No, mainly I want to start podcasting sets. The first reason actually led to the second, by the way. The first reason is, like I said, one of the college romances. Actually, I have everything and all. So when it ended, I kind of had a lot of time in my hand, because when I actually took that college romance really really seriously. Like, I wrote songs, I wrote poems, I
Wow.
did like a lot of the stuff, and I'm really proud of it as well. I mean, like, I never believed that I was actually that much of a guy, but yeah, I kind of went down that lane, thought of doing something like that. But when got over, and it was really frustrating, because it was the first time for me, first time, honest.
Mm.
So it was really frustrating, and I had a lot of time. So everyone was starting the podcast, and I was just wondering, like, maybe people have stories like me. Maybe they just want to hear. If, I mean, imagine if I have a problem, and if you're having a problem that's bigger than me, I'll be fine. I mean, like, not in a pessimistic way, but people always think that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, he's having a bigger problem than me, then I can be relieved. So that's actually the main message. Like, people who are exactly in situation have these problems, and they've overcome it. They're doing it. So why can't you? So I
Mm.
just kind of giving the permission to those people, like, just do this. Maybe it will make you better. Maybe it will help you to do something better. And making money, I never actually had the intention. Like, sponsorship, I never had the intention. I just thought, if one person could just benefit out of my podcast, or one person could actually start a podcast by listening to my podcast. And one person actually did, just one person. Recently a person actually started. She actually asked, like, what are the tips and order the microphone and everything, and actually send her voice messages, like, for everything. And she actually started her podcast, and it's going well on her side. So yeah, I think I was really happy, like, someone did because of what I do. So
Mm.
that's basically actually the message that I want to actually convey. And glad it's working out. It may take them some time as well, like you said, very long game we are actually playing right now. So yeah, basically that's the reason. Two reasons, one led to the another. So yeah.
No, I love that. That's pretty much the similar reasons why I started as well. Find out more about other people while sharing my story, and
Hmm.
yeah, just letting people know that you don't have to be like the son of a millionaire or the son of
Yeah.
whoever. Like, you don't need to be relate. You don't need to be famous or rich to
Hmm.
sort of get your voice heard. You can be a nobody. I claim to be a nobody,
Hmm.
and yeah, you can get heard. And you can get to those levels. And that's literally just all I'm trying to do, really.
Yeah, and like you said, people who are actually very rich, I mean, like not have that much of stories. I mean, like we have seen already a lot of movies to show their stories, but people like us, who's starting out and doing this hustling and everything and stuff, maybe it will motivate someone. I don't know. So that's one of the many reasons why I actually did it. And thanks for asking the question. I mean, like this is the first time I actually kind of said in like how to say in a normal way rather than really nervous. I don't know. Maybe I
Yeah.
have thought of it like before. I don't know. So yeah, that's the thing. So thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Really means a lot, and we have really good conversation. And is there anything last that you want to convey to our audience? And just let us know like what are the places that people could find you? Your cap especially, and what are the things that people could find you?
That being said, I've got to put it on just for this message, just to solidify my message.
Yeah, sure.
There we go. Look at that. I've got the hoodie and the cap as well. But yeah, no, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure. It was great to talk to you. It's good to connect. Again, one reason why I started the podcast, good to connect with like-minded people. So if there's anyone else like you, like me, like us, that are struggling but looking to really sort of get to the next level, get to the next heights, wants to hear from young entrepreneurs from the UK and really high business figures, such as people from the Apprentice and stuff like that, it's all available on my podcast, the If Only They Knew podcast. As you can see there, it's available on all platforms and on YouTube. And yeah, the If Only They Knew is the hub for young business minds. We've got everything going on there for young business minded people. So thank you so much. And yeah, come and join us at IOTK.
Wow, that's awesome. And totally, my audience will love it. And guys, I actually heard him. So it's really awesome to have him on the conversation. And like always, I leave timestamps for the things we have discussed. We have discussed a lot. But unfortunately, he didn't reveal the secret sauce that he had, maybe a part of it. But if you want to know more about it, you can just, just spam him, annoy him. I don't care. You can just go and do it. That's totally fine. And yeah, I will leave the link to the description below that he mentioned. So you can connect him with him as well. And thanks so much, man, for coming on to the podcast. Really means a lot. And I'll see you guys in the next podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you.